Hey, this is Daniel, and on this episode of the Filmcraziest Show, my guest was Ivo Raza, the writer and director of the new comedy Reboot Camp, a mockumentary following a pair of brothers who create Reboot Camp as an experiment to show how easy it would be to start a fake self-help group and con people into believing anything. Once the camp starts, it takes on a life of its own. It turns into a full-blown cult. The film was released on May 4th and is available on digital platforms wherever you get your films, and there will be a link down below for viewing options. As well, keep an eye out for my other interview with stars David Lipper and Keli Price, who play the two brothers who start Reboot Camp. Anyway, for today's interview, here is Ivo Raza to introduce the show.
Hi, my name's Ivo Raza. I'm the director and writer of Reboot Camp, and you're watching the Filmcraziest Show.
Awesome. Nice to meet you, Ivo.
Nice to meet you. Thanks for having me.
Ivo, right?
Yes, Ivo.
Okay. All right. Sounds
No offense at Ivo, though, because I get it like 75% of the time. So
okay, I'll imagine the double E. So your film is a mockumentary, and I'm curious to start with just the research. Like, did you research cults or did you research like self-help gurus and self-help books?
All of the above. I've been always fascinated with this whole topic of cults and cult leaders in particular, who manage this, mass manipulation of people. And then of course that led, you start researching something and it leads you down various rabbit holes. And one of them was, this, let's say, softer version of that, which was the self-help, and then con artists within the self-help, which, also happens. And so that kind of all meshed together, and it seemed like, the escalation of a fake self-help group would be an actual cult, and that's kind of the basic premise of the film.
Okay, yeah, definitely they start buying into Seymour's like bullshit, right? So yes. I thought that was an interesting concept.
Yeah, well, the funny thing about it is it's ironic because Seymour starts this because he's suffered personal loss at the hands of some of these con artists who basically charge crazy amounts of money for, they call it self-help. It's not self-help, it's BS. They're conning people. And his wife falls for it, and then she falls for one of them. So he loses the wife, he loses the money. So he wants to educate people about the potential danger of, and expose con artists and how they approach it. But in doing so, he's manipulating people. So it's like, hey, can't do that. And so of course he creates this, the Frankenstein that then turns on him, and he loses control, and that's the fun part. And that's all of this to say you can't manipulate people even if it's for a good cause. I mean, that's what it is.
Now, I do like a lot of horror interviews, and I'm always interested in I'm interested in when you're research of the cults, what's it like researching cults in the lens from a comedic perspective instead of something that's much more macabre for horror movies?
That is an excellent question, actually. And tone in this film was a huge fine-tuning that happened, because the more I researched cults, the more it turned out that they are rather nefarious organizations, and a lot of advantage. A lot of people are taken advantage of by joining. They give money. There's sexual exploitation and all kinds of horrible things. And so as I was deep into the cult research, I realized I can't make a comedy about that. This is serious issues that people go through, so you can't make light of that. But you can make light of silly con artists. And have fun, and they still use many of the same techniques, and this is what I used as the chapters, the love bombing and the renaming, and they all do that, and so that's where it shifted from it becomes a cult, but it doesn't start as a cult, because we can't really go into the deeper issues of cults without getting serious and staying silly.
Okay, and that was a pretty good transition, like between like, okay, self-help, but then let's just go into cult, but not a cult at the same time.
Yeah, it kind of touches on that, and it's kind of the very beginning, and where this ends up, that's open to interpretation.
Okay, now you spoke of the love bombing. I love that scene with at Begley Jr. and just how like he can kind of get sandwiched between Seymour and Maisie.
Love bombing, it's so funny. People don't join cults. Like nobody comes to you on the street and say, hey, join a cult. They come to you and say, hey, join this environmental group, or this, we are saving whatever, the earth, and we're all a big family. And so you join this wonderful, pretend wonderful place, and the first thing you get is an incredible amount of affection and support and friendship. And if you're a person who is lost somehow or is searching for something like this, so maybe a runaway or somebody who's gone through loss or divorce or loss of a job, and they feel, they don't have a good support system, they're not secure in where they are at the moment, something like this comes in as a godsend, because you want that. We all need the support system, right? I mean, that's really, really important. And so you get this crazy amount of affection, and then little by little, the true nature, starts appearing, which is, hey, we need some money because the cult can't run, and hey, we need this, and hey, we need that, and we need to devote more time to this, and everybody else is wrong. Listen to me. Only I know what the truth is, and someday I will share the truth with you, but not quite yet, right? And so there's this carrot constantly, like, they call it the knowing or the bliss or the, I'm going to help you meet God, and a lot of them use that. I mean, it's amazing. And of course, it's the promise of a simple explanation of why we're here and how life works is so seductive, and we all want it, and so people unfortunately fall for it, and it's really a playbook on how you get people to get there. It's a process, and that to me was fascinating.
For sure. And then you just put all those aspects into Gordon St. Pierre, and then that funny accent.
Well, that was David. David is a great actor, and so when we were doing, because he's my producing partner in this, and so I was staying at his house actually for 2 months as we're prepping and casting and doing, and we're having a great time and eating fabulous sushi as we're doing this, and I'm rewriting scenes as we're getting like, oh, we have this, we could get this, actor or actress. Let's create a little bit for them, and so I'm rewriting the script as it's happening. And then, we're fairly close to the shooting date. So I'm like, so Dave, have you thought about Gordon? Like, what do you want to do with him? And he's like, well, I don't know, I haven't thought about it yet. I mean, I've been thinking about it. And then we watched this documentary called Holy Hell about the Buddha Field cult in LA with this guy, Michel, and it was amazing because there was a guy who was a cult member who was a filmmaking student who was documenting a bunch of stuff as it was happening in a total, fiction meets reality, kind of similar to what this story was about. And we watched it together, and David was just, oh yeah, it's accent, and his Canadian, so he's bilingual in French, and he brought this thing, and all of a sudden that was the persona, and I think he totally lived it. It was fantastic. I mean, after a few days, everybody in the camp is like, oh my God, you could do this, like it was so believable and convincing. It was fantastic, and a lot of fun, of course.
Cool. Now about like all the cameos you get here, I was just curious. So some of them, like you have Koechner and Ja Rule, they play versions of themselves, and then people like Chaz Bono play a character called Herbert. What went into deciding who plays a real character or who plays an exaggerated version of themselves?
So we started out with a script, and then cast for the characters. So Herbert was cast. That was Chaz. That's it. That's the role, right? Then we, as the casting process was going on and the pre-production was going on, we were getting notices back from agents and managers like, hey, we could have David Koechner join you for a day. So we're like, okay, we don't really have a role that we could do for a day, but can he just join and we'll make him a camper, And then one of our executive producers, Tim, was like, hey, I'm buddies with Ja Rule. I could actually ask him to come. It's like, call Ja Rule, man. And so we would get people like that from personal contacts. And so we got Billy Morrison, the guy who stands on the sofa. He's
Sure.
Billy Idol's guitarist. And we had David and Ja Rule, and we had several, Jim Johnson, who was one of the producers, was a producer at the Real World, at the MTV Real World for 15 seasons. And so he knew, so he brought Johnny Bananas and he brought Kayla. And so we had a lot of these people who, and it's a camp. So the story and the structure allowed us to bring in people randomly and just, hey, let's have a little session here. Let's spend some time, be part of the crowd. And then if you can give us a day or two, fantastic, we'll get something out of it. And so that's how it worked. So those roles, for example, were not scripted. We would script the exercises and then just let them go nuts because they're all such creative, fantastic people. And so we got amazing improvs and moments and sound bites. So it was wonderful.
So the angry yoga was all improv.
No, well, yes. Okay, so the angry yoga was something that I researched and found that it actually exists.
Really?
Yes, it exists. There's studios who practice angry yoga, and it's mostly about drinking and cursing. But so I'm like, how do we incorporate angry yoga? So then there was one session that was completely scripted with angry yoga, which was the Keith and Isabel, the guy in the wheelchair. And but then it's like, hey, this is part of the camp, so he can use angry yoga. So with David Koechner and Ja Rule, we used angry yoga again because we thought they would, have a lot of fun with it. So that part was not scripted because we would just do the exercise with them because now we were like, okay, it's something that works and it's funny. So it was a combo of things. It was never just like, here, sit and do stuff. It was within these parameters and within scene moments where it needed to be, and that's why it worked so well because it organically connected to the core of the story.
Okay, now I gotta ask, did you guys ever use the slide, the Nicole Aniston vagina slide, outside of filming?
You mean before, during, or after?
Well, just during did you guys just ever use it in between takes?
No, not really. We were too busy shooting.
Oh, okay.
But we shot quite a bit more of that, and we just never used all of that footage. But almost everybody went down the vagina slide, and I think it lives now forever at David's house.
Okay, David Lipper. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Wasn't sure if David Lipper or I'm just imagining Davids fighting each other, David Lipper and David Koechner, who gets to take it home.
But just the slide, it doesn't have the full setup.
Now, I was also curious with just all the extras that you have. Did you tell them that you were filming a mockumentary, or did you just tell them to expect weird things?
We were telling them that this was just a film production, and we didn't get into mockumentary versus. I mean, might have mentioned its documentary style, so the coverage was different than it would have been on a normally scripted film. But other than that, we were just kind of play along and go with the flow, and the cameras were part of the scenes anyway, so they didn't really have to worry about eye lines and things like that. We were just capturing stuff in the moment and it's funny, we got so good at disappearing the crew in the background. There's a small crew anyway. That was not, nobody really was holding back because cameras were there. You know?
Okay, cool. Now, Seymour is definitely the focus of a lot of these scenes. Is it hard for the people in the background to kind of stay in character and like work with everything? Or is that just second nature?
That's a great question. You know, I think because of the quality of cast we had, because of the absolute professionals that everybody is, it is second nature to them. But it would be very easy to kind of goof off and, you know, want to check your phone. But we really didn't have those issues. Everybody was fully on because they know that it's the totality that we're all part of. So you have to be on all the time, even if you know, it's kind of the old, I used to use coverage, and then, you know, the superstar walks away. It's like, do the other person's coverage with somebody else. But you can't do that. It has to, you know, because it's an energy transference thing. Even if you're off screen, like you have to be present, and that's the dedication, the commitment to the craft, and that, you know, it was a wonderful production. Everybody was truly 100% there, cast and crew. So, but good observation. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I felt like even if they are a bit wacky in the background, it still fits the film. And it just seems like such a fun set, right?
Oh, it was super fun. And yeah, I mean, we directed that too, to a degree, and tweaked. It was a lot of tweaks, you know, that's really what it was. It's just like, hey, you know, like, so that it looks great and it feels right for where we were in the story. But no major issues with people not paying attention when the camera was not on them. Okay. And the great thing about this is the camera can be on you at any point, because we had two cameras rolling at all times. So you were getting covered a lot. So you had to be on anyway, because even if it's not, you know, pointed at you, because it's docu-style, you could just, like, you know, swish pen over in a second.
Now, I mentioned Ed Begley Jr. earlier. So I'm just curious, he's a collaborator with Christopher Guest. Were any of his comedies inspirations for this?
Well, I love mockumentary as a style of film, and, you know, two in particular are always been my favorites, which is Spinal Tap, obviously, because that's such a seminal film, and then Best in Show, which is just a brilliant film, and yeah, all the other ones too, but those two for me personally stand out. So absolutely, they were inspirations. And then to get Ed, who is, you know, he's been, you know, in most of them, is amazing, and so he you know, he just brought this whole other level of mockumentary kind of royalty presence to our project, which is wonderful.
I loved his scenes for sure. Also, just about how this is all about self-help and all these kinds of aspects. I don't know if this is too personal, but I'm just curious, have you, like, ever personally been conned or scammed by this kind of thing?
Not by self-help itself. I've been, yeah, I think we've all been scammed at some point in our lives by somebody. And it is a pet peeve, you know. I like to think that I'm a righteous person, and so I would never do something like this to people. And so this is an important, personally important theme to me. Self-help, I have gone to self-help groups and coaches, and I've had help. It's helped me. I want to stress, we're not making fun of self-help per se. We're making fun of con artists who use the guise of self-help to manipulate people and scam them out of their hard-earned money. That's this film. There's huge value in self-help, but it can be a trap, and it can, like anything else, can be used to manipulate for nefarious purposes. You know, to me, that was the personal connection.
Okay, well, I'm glad you mentioned that, just because, like, there's nothing wrong with bettering yourself, you know. But
no, not at all. On the contrary, I believe in it supremely. I mean, I think, you know, it's really the manipulation part that we're exploring here. self-help is, let's say, the setting.
Okay, so just the framing device. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, nice. Ivo Raza is how you say it?
That's right.
All right, I'm getting it. So Ivo Raza, thank you so much for chatting with me on the Film Crazy Show about Reboot Camp.
Thank you, Daniel. Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Awesome. And could we just plug when it comes out?
Yes, May 4th on all, for rent and purchase on all digital and, cable platforms.
Okay. Well, may the 4th be with you.
May the 4th be, yes, thank you, yes.
With Reboot Camp.
We keep saying that, may the 4th be with us. Yes, it'll be wonderful if people get to see and enjoy